Welcome back. You're watching the opening trade, and now let's put the focus on CosmoFilms. Let's look at how the stock is doing. On the face of it, results were indicating stable growth. Again, if you take a look at the net profit growth, roughly 10% up versus the last year. The stock is almost 7 to 8% up. Why? Because good margin expansion. Again, almost 290 basis point margin expansion. Revenue growth of 10%. So again, on the face of it, EBITDA was up 51% versus the last year. So margin expansion, revenue growth has again propelled the sort of good operating growth here again. So some good solid performance given by the company. And now let's understand the moving parts behind the results and also how the sort of FY20 looking like from the management, where Mr. Pankaj Poddar, the CEO at CosmoFilms, is now joining us. Mr. Poddar, first question to you. Help us understand how has been the sort of pricing trends for the films, for the product again you make, and secondly, what was the volume contribution?
Yeah, very good morning to all the viewers. So basically, the prices were quite suppressed for almost 2.5 years. So that has started to improve, and the last quarter, especially because of that better match between demand and supply, the prices have started to move upwards.
Right, and Mr. Poddar, usually this is a cyclical industry. Once the cycle starts, it lasts for some quarters. But I want to understand this sort of difference here. Packaging normally again works well when the crude prices are at lower end. So help us understand, since crude prices have recovered, in particularly in the last part of the March quarter and now in the June quarter also, they are at high levels there. So how you are looking at the sort of ongoing margins in June quarter?
Yes, so there are two, three things. First is that, as a company, we have been continuously trying that we move out of the cyclic nature of the industry by selling more and more specialty films. And with each passing quarter, our specialty film portfolio is showing a good growth. And even the last quarter results, to some extent, have been influenced by the specialty sales. The second thing is, normally oil prices, yes, does impact the raw material cost, but in this industry, that is normally a pass-through back to the customers. A large part of the sales is contractual, where it is back-to-back. However, it certainly impacts on the working capital for the company, and therefore, if the oil prices goes up, the working capital goes up. It also leaves lesser money with the customers to do purchasing, and therefore, that does put a very little pressure on the pricing side. But if you really ask, right now it's more about demand and supply of the film industry, and given that there's no new capacity and demand is steadily growing, and therefore, it looks to be a pretty positive market right now.
Okay, and since the crude prices have moved up in the June quarter, have already taken price hikes? Because as you were just saying, prices, they get passed as a cost passed through to customers. So already the prices have moved up in the June quarter, or we are going to expect some more price hikes?
Yes, so raw material is a pass-through most of the time, and answer is yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes, which means again there is stability here. Now let's talk about the specialty which you just highlighted. How much proportion of your revenue at present is coming from specialty, and what has been the trend in FY19, and what's the trend you're looking for FY20?
Yes, so on an average, we are at, of our total sales, 40% is specialty sales, and we intend to grow this further within a short period to 50% of our total sales. I think the other thing which is happening in the industry is that given that there is so much focus on the sustainability, Cosmo is helping so many brands and packaging companies to shift to recyclable structures, and therefore we are seeing a lot of companies are now moving towards BOPP films to have recyclable structure, because BOPP helps them in recyclability of all the concerns that comes around plastics. So that way, I think again that should be very positive for the BOPP industry as an overall.
Okay, and before I continue our operating discussion here, let me understand one point about the results. Your tax aspect again, the last quarter, the last year also again, we have seen quite a good benefit coming from the deferred tax line item. This time it was not there. So what is the difference between the December quarter and the March quarter?
Yes, so see, if we talk about last year, the indexation had changed in the Income Tax Act. The base year had changed, and therefore there was a significant tax reversal for earlier years. This year again, in the quarter 3, there was some tax reversals. but for the quarter four is more of a normalized taxation. Our normalized taxation right now is 25%. It's lower than 33% because one of our units is in SEZ area, which is now getting a 50% tax exemption and should continue to get 50% tax exemption for next 9 years. So we should be hovering around 25% tax rate unless and until there is any specific tax adjustments. But our normalized tax rate is 25%.
Okay, so that's a good understanding on the tax line item. Now let's go back to the revenue growth possibilities. Now across food or across different sectors, categories, BOPP films, again, those actually are gaining significant traction. So looking at that, how's the FY20 outlook looking to you? And let's break it down again. What sort of volume growth, what sort of revenue growth, perhaps a broader range you would be expecting? And secondly, again, if the margins, are you expecting the margins to be stable, or they can get a sort of an improvement from the current levels?
Yeah, so there will be three factors which will be playing for us. The first is the demand and supply for the OPP films in general. And given that one is, BOPP itself is growing as far as demand is concerned. And right now it's growing at more than the normal rate because a lot of companies are shifting towards sustainability. So because the demand supply is looking favorable, so that should keep the general prices at a higher level for the year. The second thing is our significant focus on specialty, and we have been spending a lot of efforts on research and development. We are continuously hiring people on research and development. We are bringing more assets on research and development. So we have successfully implemented some programs, on the new products that we have implemented. And there are some more projects which are going to be commercialized in next quarter and then quarters thereon. So I think specialty in itself will start showing a significant improvement to our overall financials. The third thing is, as far as the volume is concerned, we are broadly utilized. There is still some scope for, better utilization of the assets than last one. There should be some growth this year, but I think the major growth will happen from basic BOPP films to more specialty films. So that will be a more important thing for us in the coming year.
Right. A quick word since I'm out of time. Pankaj, is any competition from sort of imports, or all is fine at present?
No, actually, see, Cosmo is increasingly becoming a very strong global brand. And our vision is also to be one of the most preferred brands, and I think we are going ahead very nicely and clearly towards becoming a preferred brand across the globe. The good thing happening is that many global brands are approaching CosmoFilm for their innovation projects, and we are clearly becoming one of the preferred choice for various brands on research projects and new projects. So I think as far as imports is concerned, there is no competition as such for us. For us, the competition largely comes from a couple of large global players who, again, are more specialty-driven players.
Pankaj, it was indeed an interesting discussion with you. All the wishes to you for FY20. FY19, again, has ended on a strong note for your company. And the results and the stock price, they both actually are stamping on the fact that it was a strong EBITDA growth, and that's why the stock is up almost 8%, in fact 8 to 9%. And as we were speaking to Pankaj, the stock has increased further again, right from 5 to 8% now. That's CosmoFilms for you. Now let's move on to Welspun Enterprise, where the company has delivered some strong growth. Revenue up 79% versus last year, EBITDA up 98% versus last year.